Welcome to the Communication Diva podcast, episode 95. On this episode of the podcast, Jen interviews Shelley-Anne Vidal from ACT by Vidal. ACT stands for Accent and Communication Training, and Shelley-Anne helps skilled professional immigrants not to lose the accent they have, but to add a Canadian accent to their repertoire. This increases the ease with which other people understand them and their chances for professional success. If Shelley-Anne can help people speak like Canadians, maybe she can help people think like Canadians, compassionately, with an open mind, and committed to playing an important role on the world stage as a middle power capable of acting to make the world a better place. I wonder if Mr. Harper has any time set aside for professional development courses.
Hey, welcome to the Communication Diva podcast. This is Jen Swanson, and I am bringing a fabulous person to you today named Shelley-Anne Vidal. And before I get into that, I just wanted to let you know that I'm in the last phases of writing the first draft of my book. The book is due out in April of 2015, and the book is called What They See, How to Stand Out and Shine in Your New Job. So if you're interested in being one of the first people to get an advanced copy of this book, please sign up for my email list over at communicationdiva.com. And the email list, the newsletter people are going to get first chance at this book, and I can even sign copies if you're interested. So that's coming out, and my target market is for anyone who is recently graduated from high school, from college, from university, and who is wanting to present themselves in the best possible light as far as communication skills go, what to wear, what to say, things to consider and look at as far as self-growth and self-awareness go, so that you can stand out in your workplace and shine as a spectacular employee. So I'm looking forward to bringing you that, and stay tuned, and we'll be posting pictures of the cover and all the rest of it on the website in short order, but I've got to get the thing finished here. So that's great. So that's what's been happening around these parts. I'm hoping to do a little reorganizing of the website, a little bit of rebranding, and I'm opening up some workshops for companies that would be interested in having me come in and do some corporate work, some training, some communication skills, team building, leadership, all that kind of stuff. So lots going on here. Our puppy is getting bigger and bigger. He is 5 months old now, and gets bored easily. So he's scrubbling around in the background as I record this, and I think needs to have a walk in a moment. But I am going to bring you Shelley-Anne Vidal. Shelley-Anne has been working with people who have come to Canada with heavy accents from all over the world. And instead of removing or getting them to lose their accents, she has the most positive spin on this. She is providing them with accent addition. And what she is doing is helping people to adopt, develop, acquire an English accent, as far as a Canadian English accent goes. I'm sure it would be very, very easy to understand in the U.S. as well. So I am excited about this. I think Shelley-Anne and I are going to collaborate in the future with all that she's got going on and all that I've got going on. So without further ado, here she is. I hope you enjoy this interview. Thanks for listening. Hey everyone, so I am here in the home studio with Shelley-Anne Vidal from ACT by Vidal. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Jen.
I am so glad you are here. When I first met you, I thought I have to interview this person because what you are doing is exactly the kind of stuff that the Communication Diva audience, I think, will be interested in. So can you start off by maybe telling us a little bit about what you did before and how you ended up coming to do what you do now?
Okay. Well, I usually tell my story a little bit about the fact that I'm a entrepreneur. It's in my blood. It's in my DNA. From the time I was about 9 years old, I've had little businesses, and so I earned my undergraduate degree in communications with a minor in sociology. When I completed that in the U.S., I moved back home to BC. And I did a few different types of contracts and jobs. I worked as a field interviewer for the National Congress of Black Women. I also worked for a trade show company selling trade show displays. And yeah, that was
diverse.
It was very diverse and interesting, but it gave me a stronger business background. When the economy tanked in 2008, I returned to school and decided to go into adult education because I have a passion for teaching. And from there, I also did studied career practitioning at SFU. And that gave me a more well-rounded approach to facilitating, and it gave me an outlet to actually go out there and facilitate to people who were looking for jobs. And it was a great time because the economy wasn't so strong, so I could do that. That just opened up a whole new door, working with skilled immigrants and helping them to get back into their pre-landing occupation. I've been doing that for about 5 years now, and it's wonderful. I love it. But in that industry, there was another change in how things were being done, and the funding switched and the job market shifted. And during that time, I decided to take a different turn in my life and start my own business officially. And that's where I started Act by Vidal, because I learned I realized that there was a gap with some of my skilled immigrants that I was working with. They had so much experience in their home country. These are skilled professionals, doctors, lawyers, teachers, nurses, pharmacists, salespeople, so highly educated. And they have so much to bring to our country. But I found that there was a bit of a gap in communication when they went out there to find their job. They may not have been able to articulate to the employer exactly what their point was. And that caused a barrier for them to actually land the job. So when I noticed that gap and there was a need in the market, I decided, you know what, I can do this. With my background, and I did additional training in pronunciation so that I had those tools, I decided to open Act by Vidal.
And what does Act by Vidal actually do?
Well, ACT, which stands for Accent and Communication Training by Vidal, what we do is we empower, inspire, and motivate others to reach their full potential through clear communication, right? So I actually focus on a term we call accent addition rather than accent reduction.
I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a really positive spin. And what we're doing is we're helping our newcomers with foreign accents, strong foreign accents, learn how to speak with a Canadian accent so that they can build that into their repertoire. And when they go into the work environment, they can be more clearly understood by others, which makes them feel more empowered, and they have that confidence that some of them don't have when they come to Canada and they find that their communication is a barrier for them. So that's essentially what we do.
So it's not about you have an accent that you have to get rid of.
No.
It's honoring their their own language and the accent that they have and how they speak and who they are actually.
Absolutely.
And just giving them an extra skill like you would if you were an actor and you had to play someone with a different accent. You had to learn that accent.
That's exactly it.
That's fabulous.
Thank you.
That's really good because, I in my teaching at the college where I teach students to be nursing unit clerks, there are a lot of students that come in with heavy accents. And part of the problem in healthcare is that you do have to be easily understood. And for some of them, it is a real barrier to actually graduating, which is a challenge for us as teachers because you can see on paper that this person gets it and they know what they're doing. And it's the practical application of having to, after they've studied all the theory, having to put it into practice on their clinical experience out in the hospitals, that we find it challenging if the person can't be understood by, people they've never met before. Once you get to know someone, often you understand, you can hear more clearly through
Absolutely.
an accent, but I can see that this would be really helpful to people, especially when they're trying to get a job.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. And for me, my parents are immigrants, right?
Okay.
They come from the Caribbean. They're from Trinidad. They have accents. Accents are beautiful, right? I think it's important to honor them. And that's why what we do is we focus on teaching our participants how to communicate with clarity and confidence. That's really what we do. And the pronunciation is just a vehicle to teach them how to do that.
So who comes to you? What kinds of clients do you get?
Oh, well, we've got some doctors. We've got some lawyers. There are nurses. There are statisticians.
Wow.
and from all over. I've got clients that are from China, that are from India, from Russia, from Moldova, from Brazil, from Korea, all over the world.
So you're dealing with all different kinds of accents.
Absolutely.
Wow. And you do this do you do private coaching? Do you do workshops? How do you present this?
This is through group training, so group workshops. That's how we do it. We do it twice a week.
Okay.
Because I find that gives them an opportunity to practice a little more often rather than once a week.
And how long is a session?
Each session is 2 hours.
No, okay. So how
for 8
long?
weeks.
Yeah, for 8 weeks.
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
So wow, that's a big commitment, but it's not very long term. And at the end of 8 weeks, what do they come out with?
That confidence and clarity to go out there and speak to native English speakers, because some of them have been stuck in their home and afraid to leave the home because they just don't have that confidence to speak to a native English speaker. And they feel like a native English speaker will not understand them. So then there becomes a cycle, right? They're afraid to speak English, so they don't leave home, and then their English pronunciation does not improve, right? So we break that cycle by allowing them to be in a welcoming, fun, energetic environment where we laugh and we have a lot of fun. And at the end of every session that we have, people leave and they're energized, right?
And they have homework, presumably.
Absolutely. Practice speaking English.
So they have to go. And so these aren't people who don't know the language.
No.
These are not ESL, English as a second language. These are people who understand and know the language. It's just helping them to speak it more effectively or more clearly.
Yeah. We increase the fluency, right? That's what it's about. Some of them, they might still be taking ESL classes, but they're at an intermediate level. They're not at a lower level.
Okay.
They're at the intermediate level of ESL. So they can have a conversation. They understand what you're saying. Their comprehension is really good, but they still may not understand some of our terms that we use out here, some of our slang. And so that might be integrated into some of the courses as well that we teach.
Some of the nuances of the words.
Exactly.
Okay. That sounds like a fun class.
It is.
And what do you get out of it?
Well, it's inspiring to me. I had earlier this week when I had a few sessions, we were talking about breaking out of our comfort zones in the class. And they were sharing their experiences of coming to Canada and leaving their home country. And it was just so inspiring because it reminded me of the journey that my parents went through. And I said to my participants, I'm glad that my parents made that journey so that I could be born in Canada. And I have so many opportunities, and now their children will have so many more opportunities that they maybe didn't have in their home country. So, yeah.
It's interesting. I interviewed a gentleman, and I don't know where he was in the U.S., but he has just written a book. I do a hosting for another podcast called The Authors of Influence Radio through Influence Publishing. And I interviewed a man who's written a book that is a hand guide. It's a great big thick book for new immigrants. And one of the things he was talking about was getting out of the enclave,
Yes.
getting out of that group of people who speak the same language as you do to get into the culture that you've moved into, no matter where that happens to be, and immerse yourself in the language and the customs and the culture. Because he says often what happens is, as you say, people are afraid to do that, and they stay with the people that speak the same way they do and never do integrate. And so it sounds like what you're doing is helping people to integrate more fully.
Absolutely. And there's another, I think he's inspiring and wonderful gentleman named Nick Narani, who's created the Canadian Immigrant magazine, which is national.
Oh, wow.
It was actually started here in Vancouver, and he sold it to the Toronto Star, I believe. And he talks about the 7 secrets to successfully immigrating to Canada. And in there, he talks about getting out of your ethnic silo, learning the language, and so many other, right? And it's so important. He's actually going to be speaking at the Vancouver Public Library on November the 4th, 2014. So
Okay.
that'll be interesting if people are in town and they can hear it.
Is anyone else doing what you're doing? I hadn't heard of this before.
There are other people who do it in across Canada, in the U.S., but it's not something that you hear about all the time. You hear about ESL classes, right?
Yeah.
But this is a little different. It's a more of a niche market than just ESL because it's hyper focused on pronunciation.
I was standing outside of, I was going to some networking event in Vancouver, and I can't even remember what street I was on, but I was standing on a street and I was waiting to get into this event, and I looked around, and from where I stood, I could count probably 6 or 7 language schools, English as a second language schools, and I was stunned. But part of it is too, and I know there's been a big funding cut by the government to the education at the college I work at. It's a whole bunch of people have lost their jobs, and it's really quite sad. But a lot of entrepreneurial people have popped up and started these language schools, and so I wonder if that is if you add to that, people are coming to you from those.
I haven't tapped into that market as yet. That is an area that I will be looking at in the future, but I haven't really done that. Right now, my primary focus is working with clients that are in the Skills Connect for Immigrants program.
Okay.
So there are a number of service providers that offer that, like Back in Motion, Training Innovations, ISS out here. So they are immigrant serving societies or organizations, right? And their clients are my ideal clients right now.
Perfect. So what could you offer the listener of Communication Diva who can't come to take, who can't come to take one of your classes? Maybe some tips or something that you could offer them.
Sure. One of the things that we talk about in our class is the importance of getting out of your own ethnic group and talking to native English speakers. So that's key. I would say get out there. Another tip that I encourage people to do is to listen to music in English. So find an artist, a North American artist that you really enjoy, and listen to how they're singing and they're pronouncing the words, and sing along, because then you'll also pick up the rhythm, the music of English. Sometimes with non-native English speakers, when they speak really choppy because they have a syllable timed language versus a stress timed language that we have in our native English speaking way. So those little tips will definitely help them with their fluency, right? I mean, in the classes we talk about how to pronounce consonants and vowels and all that stuff, which is a lot more detailed. And I show the listeners how to position your tongue and your lips and your jaw to drop your jaw when you're making certain sounds, right? But that's a little more visual. But there are a number of techniques that you can use, but I think just getting outside of your comfort zone, talking to a native English speaker, find out if there's conversation circles in your library or around you, even finding people to Skype with, that's a great idea. That way you can practice. That will help you. And listen to the way that a native English speaker speaks. Even listening to the podcasts are great, right?
Right.
So
I had a note once through Communication Diva from an 18-year-old young man in Brazil who was listening to English, and he said he liked to listen to my podcast because he could understand me.
Wonderful.
And he was learning English, and I guess my show was part of his learning. And I thought, oh, that's just fantastic.
Absolutely.
That absolutely made my day, because I thought you never know who you're going to touch, around the world. So that was quite something. So getting out of your comfort zone and finding somebody else to talk with, and listening to music and singing along.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm sometimes amazed when I hear someone from another country who's a performer and an artist and who sings in English, how perfect their accent is.
Yes, because in their training, they learn something called the IPA, or International Phonetic Alphabet. So that's a universal way that you would pronounce different sounds, right? So as the songstress or singer is learning, they're learning how to pronounce each sound that's in a general American accent.
Right.
Right. So that's why it sounds the same as if they were born or raised in North America.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the most challenging pieces for your clients?
The most challenging.
Is there a particular sound or a particular word or?
It's hard to say, because for every ethnic group, there may be an isolated sound that's more challenging for them. So for some ethnic groups, it might be the L's or the R's or the B's or the V's, right? So again, I can isolate that sound that they're having challenges with and show them the tongue position. For example, if you were saying a V, the your top teeth are positioned right on your bottom lip, and it's a V, right? Versus a B where your two lips are closed and then you push out the air, right? So there's little techniques that I can show them, and we have mirrors, and we really get in there.
That's great. Where do you hold these? Do you have a classroom somewhere that you rent or that you have access to?
Well, I do the training right on the on site. So I go to Back in Motion in their Coquitlam office, in their Surrey office, in their Richmond office, and I hold the training there.
Great. So, and how many people do you have in your groups?
Well, it ranges anywhere from a small group might have 3, and a larger group can go anywhere from about 12 to 15 people.
Wow. Yeah. So being able to go around and give them individual help is not that difficult, because you're not dealing with 45 people in a classroom. No. You get some good one-on-one time with
Absolutely.
that. Oh, good.
Well, that's key, right? And I think that's where I might be different from some of the other services that are being offered, because they get that individualized attention, and I will record sound bites and send it to them via email so they can hear it and listen to it and practice how they say something versus how I say something.
So do you ever do any distance training? Do you ever do anything over Skype or anything like that?
I haven't started doing that yet. That's something that I would love to do in the future.
Yeah, because I can see that somebody, even before they get here, might be waiting to, have all their paperwork in order and all the rest of it, and might really benefit from having this kind of work while they're waiting.
Absolutely.
From a distance. I can see that as something that would be really possible and exciting too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's all sorts of these neat platforms where you can have a class.
I know.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself in the next 5 years with ACT by Vidal?
In the next 5 years, I would love to be across Canada and breaking out internationally. So using that global market, whether it's through Skype or doing some traveling to islands in the Caribbean or wherever, doing
going back home, hey?
Right, where it's nice and warm as we're approaching winter.
Yeah, I can see that though. Absolutely. I can see, people saying, "Hey, come on over," especially if you're trying to learn a language as a second or third language in another country, even to be able to have the satisfaction of knowing that you are pronouncing it properly.
Yes.
Because I know that sometimes if you learn a language as a second language, even here, I've had French teachers, I grew up in a Francophone area and went to French school, like French, it was total French immersion for the first 7 or 8 years. But when I got here to BC, there was less of that. And some of my French teachers had really poor French accents when they were teaching. And so, they would say something and I would say, that's not how I learned it. But then the way I learned French was Canadian Francophone, which was totally different than, off in Paris, right. Where it's a little more of a pristine language. Mm-hmm. And, I definitely sound like, the Quebecois that I am. And, the English-speaking Quebecois from Quebec. But I do not sound like either a true, Francophone or someone from France. So I'm kind of that weird, hybrid kind of accent. But so I could see that this would be an interesting thing in other countries for people who want to learn English and then maybe expand their opportunities.
Absolutely. For those who want to learn it from a native English speaker, mm-hmm. and just want to focus on that pronunciation, because a lot of my clients, they've learned English back home, mm-hmm. right? But like you said, their instructors may not have been a native English speaker, so they might not be able to teach them the same way that I would teach them, mm-hmm. right? Their pronunciation might be off, and I've had that, right? Or even if they've learned it, let's say in England, right? Mm-hmm. So some of them will leave their home country, let's say in China, and then they go to England and they learn English there, mm-hmm. and then they come here and the pronunciation is very different to how we would pronounce things.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So language, like I've heard of language coaching, accent coaches before, and I wonder, when people are going into the media, they might need to get rid of a particular, even a dialect, even if they do speak English, but they might sound, I was somewhere in Vegas on a bus and someone said, "Are you a Canadian?" Like, what? How different do I sound, really? But they spotted my, blinding Canadian accent from a mile away, apparently. And I thought, we really sound that different in Canada from places in the U.S. I mean, I don't notice it when I'm down in Bellingham or Seattle, but anywhere farther, I guess it definitely is different. Yes. And so I wondered if there were opportunities there for you to.
There are so many opportunities.
I know.
But, you have to crawl before you walk.
That's right.
Because the business is only about a year old.
Okay. Yeah. You've only been doing this for a year.
Yeah. Okay. She's just a baby business.
Well, with opportunity to explode, I can see.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm so excited that we met because I see all sorts of ideas for collaboration whizzing around in my brain. And And the work that you're doing is very, very exciting and so helpful to people. What are some of the results that you've had? What are some of the responses you've had from people?
Well, again, it's just that confidence boom that they receive at the end. And they're just encouraged to go out there and speak English, right? And not to fall back in that comfort zone of speaking their mother tongue all the time, right? They will. One of my first clients, he is an accountant originally from China, and he was just very apprehensive to go out there and try to attack different demographics other than just the Chinese community, because he didn't feel like he had the communication skills that he needed to attack the North American audience. After finishing working with him, I saw him out there at the Surrey Board of Trade events, out there talking to people and just excited, right? And that is encouraging to me. Absolutely. That's what inspires me. When people get excited to speak English, I'm happy.
If you could see her right now, her whole body language is lit right up there. Yeah. Oh, that's great. So you've had good, and you've got testimonials on your website too. Yes. People who've found newfound confidence. Absolutely. For sure. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to leave the listener with?
Yes, I definitely encourage people to come check me out on my website, which is actbyvidal.com. That's actbyvidal.com. You can also check me out on Facebook, which is you can find Act by Vidal on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as well, Accent Edition. And those are the main social media platforms that you can find me. So check us out.
Yeah, and people from all over can go to your website and see what possibilities there may be for working with you. That's very exciting. Okay, so thank you for coming in and for taking the time and spending this rainy part of the morning with me here in our podcast studio. And I look forward to hearing about your business and all the things that you're busy doing in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shelley-Anne.
All right.
So thank you for listening to the podcast today. I hope that Shelley-Anne was inspiring to you. You can hear us on Stitcher Radio. You can also hear us through Libsyn. And if you're interested at all in sharing your story, make sure you come over to the Communication Diva website, because there are promo codes for Libsyn and for Stitcher and discounts for those things under the products section and also along the right-hand side of the page on Communication Diva. So make sure you check that out. I am recording this exit little piece on October 22nd, 2014, right in the middle of an attack on the capital of my country. And so there's a lot going on here. This is not something that has happened very often here. We're waiting for the Prime Minister to speak. And I just wanted to say that my thoughts and prayers are with the people that are stuck on Parliament Hill in the building, the family and friends of the soldier who was killed, and the family and friends of the attacker too, because who knows what they are going through at the moment. So it's a shocking and sad occurrence, and I'm just putting that out there, that I'm thinking about that today as we finish up here. So take care of each other, and until next time, this is Jen Swanson with Communication Diva.